It is exhaustive, credible, and deeply disturbing. The recordings alone justify detention. The documented planning of psychological and physical harm, the attempt to fabricate mental instability, all of it paints a portrait of a dangerous and calculated offender. Randall tried to interject. Your Honor, these materials could easily be. Counsel, Sterling cut him off, his voice ablade. You may challenge at trial, but as of now, probable cause is more than established. He leaned forward. Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Furthermore, a permanent restraining order is issued. The defendant is forbidden from any contact with the victim or her family. Any violation will result in additional charges. Victor's composure cracked. No, this is insane. I have rights. I have friends in this building. The gavel came down. Remove the defendant. 2 officers seized him. His voice echoed down the corridor as they dragged him away, desperate, incoherent, meaningless. The man who had built his empire on control was finally powerless. Aisha approached me. It's a strong start, she said. Now comes the trial. But with what we have, I'm confident. I exhaled slowly. For the first time in days, the air didn't taste like fear. I walked out of the courtroom. The marble floors reflected the morning light. The hum of voices filled the corridor. Lawyers, reporters, people chasing their own versions of justice. I passed a window and caught my reflection. Older, yes. Exhausted, yes, but alive. There was fire in my eyes again. I called Jordan. She answered instantly. Mom, it's over, I said softly. He's not getting out. There was silence, then a trembling breath, half relief, half disbelief. When I stepped outside, the city had come fully alive. Cars passed, coffee shops opened, and life went on. But for me, everything had changed. For the first time in years, Lily was safe. And Victor Grant, the man who thought power could silence truth, was behind bars, where monsters belong. I walked down the courthouse steps, sunlight washing over me. It wasn't the end of the fight, but it was justice, real, raw, and earned. And I promised myself, as the wind carried away the last echoes of his voice, no woman under my watch would ever be silenced again. The courtroom was tense, heavy with silence that could cut through air. Darius sat at the defendant's table, his once confident posture reduced to slumped shoulders and trembling hands. The arrogance that had fueled his cruelty was gone. All that remained was fear. Aisha stood tall at the prosecutor's table, her expression calm but fierce. Every piece of evidence was a blade of truth, and she wielded it with precision. The recordings played, Darius's voice echoing through the room, venomous and cruel. The medical reports, the photographs, the statements, each one painted a picture of systematic abuse, of a man who believed power made him untouchable. The defense tried to twist the narrative, to suggest exaggeration, misunderstanding, or manipulation. But every argument fell flat. The evidence was too strong, the truth too loud. Then Skylar took the stand. The room fell utterly silent. She walked slowly but confidently, her back straight, her chin raised. Gone was the fragile woman from that morning. Now stood a survivor reclaiming her story. Aisha guided her gently. Can you tell us when the abuse began? Skylar took a deep breath. 3 months after we got married. It started small, a push, then a slap, always followed by flowers, tears, promises. But it never stopped. It only got worse. Why didn't you leave sooner? Aisha asked softly. Skylar met the jury's eyes. Because I was afraid. Because he controlled everything. My money, my friends, my job. He isolated me until I believed I had nowhere to go. And when I finally tried to escape, he found the recordings I had made. He threatened to destroy me. Said no one would believe me because he had friends in powerful places. Her voice trembled, but she didn't cry. When I called the police that night, they believed him. Not me. The defense lawyer rose for cross-examination. His tone was sharp. Isn't it true you suffer from anxiety? Yes, Skylar said simply. I developed it after months of living in terror. And you sought psychiatric help, didn't you? Yes, she said again, steady this time. Because my husband was destroying me. He tried another angle. Isn't it possible some of these injuries were accidental? Skylar looked at him, eyes cold and strong. Accidental cigarette burns? Accidental broken ribs? Accidental ligature marks? No, none of it was accidental. The lawyer hesitated, then quietly said, No more questions. Skylar left the stand. When she passed Darius, he tried to meet her eyes. She didn't look at him. He no longer had power over her. One by one, other women came forward, Chloe, Danielle, and more, each telling their story. How he had manipulated, stalked, humiliated, and destroyed. The pattern was undeniable. Darius's empire of control crumbled before everyone's eyes. When the verdict was read, there was no applause, no shouts, only a deep, collective silence. The kind that comes when justice finally breathes. Darius Croft was found guilty on all major counts. Weeks later, the air felt lighter. Skylar sat at a small cafe with her mother, Judge Mercer, and her sister Jordan. Sunlight streamed through the windows, painting everything gold. There were no tears today, just smiles, quiet conversation, and coffee that didn't taste of stress anymore. Skylar had started a non-profit organization to help survivors, the Haven Foundation. Daniel had gone back to college. Chloe was working as a counselor for trauma recovery. They were rebuilding together, piece by piece. Skylar took her mother's hand. It all started because you didn't give up. Because when I called that morning, you came. You fought for me. Judge Mercer smiled softly. I did what any mother would. Skylar shook her head. No, you did what an extraordinary mother would. You used your strength, your voice, your power, and you saved my life. They sat in peaceful silence, the kind that exists only when the worst is finally over. Then Jordan arrived, bursting through the door with a bright smile and a bottle of non-alcoholic wine. Guess what, she said. Remember the complaint I filed against Captain Cole? They had almost forgotten. He's been suspended without pay, she said triumphantly. They found evidence of negligence, favoritism, even cases he buried to protect his friends. They're reopening investigations. Skylar exhaled in disbelief. Finally, and there's more, Jordan added. Randall Quinn lost his license. The ethics board found he helped cover up multiple crimes. Not just Darius's, but others too. The news felt like fresh air after a storm. The system that had failed them was finally, slowly, correcting itself. Justice had rippled outward. That night, they shared pie and laughter, talking about books, movies, and the simple things that once felt impossible. For the first time in years, they were just family. Not victims, not fighters, just women free to live again. When the sun began to set, Skylar stepped onto the balcony. The city glowed below, lights flickering like stars. She thought of the countless windows, of how many might still hide stories like hers. Her mother joined her. What are you thinking about? All the others, Skylar whispered. The women who don't have someone like you. The ones still trapped, afraid, thinking no one will believe them. Her mother nodded. That's why you tell your story. That's why you keep fighting, so they'll know they're not alone. Skylar smiled faintly. That's why I'm writing the book. Why I'm recording these talks. I want them to know there's hope. She looked up at the darkening sky. For months, I thought when Darius went to prison, I'd feel vengeance. But I don't. I just feel peace. Weeks later, a soft red light blinked on, recording. Skylar sat before her camera, calm and resolute. She looked straight into the lens, her voice strong but gentle. I used to think silence protected me, but it didn't. It protected him. Strength is born from pain. Healing begins the moment we stop hiding. She smiled, not the broken smile of survival, but the proud one of rebirth. If my story reached you, if it reminded you that hope still exists, show it. Leave a like, tell me where you're listening from, what city, what time. Let's see how far our voices can go. And if you want to help other survivors, you can donate to the Haven Foundation. Every small act helps another woman find her way out. No one should face the dark alone. Her voice softened. Thank you for listening, for believing, and for sharing your time with me. On the screen, you'll find 2 more stories, real lives, real strength. Maybe one of them will remind you of someone you love. Maybe one will remind you of yourself. She leaned closer to the camera. And if you're still in that dark place, hold on. Your story isn't over yet. The recording light faded. Silence returned, not of fear, but of peace. Skylar exhaled deeply. Her story was no longer a secret. It was a beacon, and somewhere, someone listening would find hope, just as she once did.